Last year, a friend of a friend, if I get this right, a friend of a friend reached out to me and said their friend had told them that something had happened in their family that required them to sell their property urgently. So this friend then said that they started talking to some agents about the possibility of an urgent sale. And so the agents went and looked at the house and did the inspection, etc., etc. And then they came upon a bathroom in the garage, and they asked, "Why is this here?" And the friend told them that, that was originally a laundry, and we converted it to a bathroom, an ensuite bathroom, shower, bathroom, shower, toilet, and wash and basin, so that it can be used with the fourth bedroom. And this bathroom, they said, was unconsented. And that stopped the agents in their tracks and said, "Oh, you did not get a consent for this?" And the friend said, "Yes, we did not. But we got a qualified builder to do it, and all the other installers were qualified, the waterproofing guy, the carpenter was qualified, etc., etc." So the agent said, "Well, because you have an unconsented bathroom, you might not be able to sell this house because it doesn't have, the bathroom is not consented yet. And you need to somehow get it consented before you can sell, and that way you might be able to sell it at a good value. But with a bathroom being unconsented, it might not fetch a lot, and you might not attract many buyers." So when the friend had that, they reached out to this friend, who then in turn reached out to me and gave me that scenario or that story. And I said, so they asked me, "What do you think the client needs to do, or this friend needs to do, in order to get consent for this bathroom?" So I said, "Okay, let me have a look." So guys, before I proceed, I just want to welcome you to this channel. My name is Dr. Munya, and welcome to my channel, where we share building and construction tips that we hope might be able to enlighten somebody and help them save a few coins here and there, but most importantly is to educate the general public about some of these things that happen in the design and construction industry. So before I proceed, please, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, subscribe down below, like, and share. Right, so let me continue with this story. So when my friend asked me, "What do you think, what can be done so that this guy, their friend, can get that unconsented bathroom consented, and so that they can be able to hopefully sell this property," because it was an urgent sale. Something had happened, had come up in the family that require them to sell their family home or their property urgently. So today I want to talk about something called a Certificate of Acceptance, or a C.O.A, for unconsented building work. This video is specifically for clients living and constructing in New Zealand, and especially Auckland, New Zealand, because that's where we are based. That's where I am based. So a Certificate of Acceptance, or C.O.A, is a document that is issued by council, and it provides limited assurance that council is satisfied on reasonable grounds that any unconsented building work complies with the New Zealand Building Code. So it is a document, or is it a certificate that is issued by council, Auckland Council, or any council in New Zealand, that states that council is satisfied to reasonable grounds that unconsented building work complies with the building code. So a C.O.A does not replace a building consent. It's not issued in lieu of a building consent. Where in cases where council has failed to issue a building consent, or in cases not actually failed, in cases where council has not issued a building consent, one may apply for a C.O.A. And what kind of work, or in what circumstances, is unconsented work or any work eligible for a Certificate of Acceptance? One scenario that unconsented work is eligible for a Certificate of Acceptance is the case I've described below. A client, for either lack of knowledge or emergency or whatever, converted a bathroom or a laundry or an existing space in the house into a bathroom, but they did not obtain a building consent to do that. And then something happens in the family. They require to sell that property quickly or whenever, and then they realize that without some sort of document from council that states that certifies that the work they did, the unconsented work they did it according to the code, they may not be able to sell that particular property and get the value that they hoped they would get if it was all consented. Now, a C.O.A, now in New Zealand, when you finish building work and it's complying with the building code, you are issued with something called a CCC, or a Code of Compliance Certificate, a CCC. You are issued with a CCC, and a CCC, Code of Compliance Certificate, shows that, it certifies that the building, the council is satisfied with the work, and the work has been done according to the minimum standards of the Building Code of New Zealand. If the council is unable to issue a CCC in certain circumstances, and I will mention those circumstances next, you can apply for a Certificate of Acceptance, but they are not one and the same. One does not replace the other. The CCC does not necessarily mean it cannot be replaced by a C.O.A, which is a Certificate of Compliance. Now, you can only apply for a C.O.A if the building work was constructed without a building consent from the 1st of July 1992 onwards, or in specific circumstances where a Code of Compliance Certificate or a CCC cannot be issued. So any work that was done prior to 1992, prior to the 1st of July 1992 in New Zealand, cannot be issued a CCC or a C.O.A, cannot be issued a certificate of acceptance or a CCC. Any work that was done after July 1992 and wasn't issued a CCC or a Code of Compliance certificate, you can apply for a C.O.A. And a C.O.A, a certificate of acceptance, may be issued for building works under the following circumstances. When urgent work, number one, when urgent work is carried out either to protect life or health or prevent serious damage to property, and at that moment or in that particular time, it's not practical to obtain a building consent in advance. And number two, a CCC can be issued when a building consent authority, which is not a territorial authority, or an organization that is accredited to the building consent authority, is unable or refuses to issue a Code of Compliance certificate for any work carried out under building consent. So you can apply for a CCC if it's urgent work that is required to save life or prevent serious damage, or if a building consent authority, BCA, which is not a territorial or regional authority, or an organization accredited to the building consent authority, is unable to or refuses to issue a Code of Compliance certificate for work that is carried out under a building consent. So, before you apply for a C.O.A, it is highly recommended that you attend a C.O.A pre-application meeting with council. This meeting is not mandatory, but it's highly recommended. As consultants, we highly recommend. And in that meeting, what council will do is that a project information memoranda, or PIM, will be determined if a PIM is required. It will also be determined, that meeting will also determine if a building consent is required, because some work in New Zealand is exempt from building consent. There are certain jobs, there's certain work in New Zealand that you don't need a building consent to carry out. And in a different video, I'll talk about what is unconsented work, what is categorized as unconsented work in New Zealand that you can do without a building consent. And also in that meeting, the council will determine whether you need a resource consent, and if the building work is likely to obtain approval. Okay, and of course there is fees that is required for when you're applying for a certificate of acceptance, and that fees is determined by council. If you go to the Auckland Council website, you can find out how much fees you're supposed to pay for a certificate of acceptance. Now, other scenarios where you might need a certificate of acceptance, like I say, a lot of people, and we get this a lot of times, is that people come to us and they either have an unconsented kitchen sink in the garage. So somebody put an unconsented kitchen sink in the garage. Somebody, like I said, converted a laundry. It's very common, an existing laundry into a bathroom. Or they converted an existing wardrobe, added some space onto it into a toilet and bathroom, and they didn't get a building consent. And so when a situation happens where now they're required to either sell the house or not, then they realize, oh, we need a building consent for this work. How do we go about getting it? So certificate of acceptance for unconsented building work is one way of obtaining some sort of assurance. It's limited assurance, actually, that council is satisfied on reasonable grounds that the unconsented building work complies with the current New Zealand Code. Now, I'll briefly just talk about the things that you need for a certificate of acceptance. There's a checklist, of course. Council has a checklist and the way in which they assess this application for certificate of acceptance. But for the most part, we need lots of evidence that the work that was carried out according to the building consent. So photos during construction, during installation, you need those ones. If, for instance, it's a bathroom, you need producer statements from the person who did, from the waterproofer. You need evidence of installation, maybe from the manufacturers. You need like data sheets, etc., just any information that will prove to council convincingly that the work that was done was actually carried out as per the building code. And then, of course, for us, you will need the drawings. So we'll need to draw up some of those details. We'll need the specifications. You'll need the manufacturer's details for the products that you use, or the fittings, and then drawings, specifications, etc. And we put all that evidence together, and then we lodge the application to council. You know, your photographs, your producer statements, installation manuals, brands appraisals, appraisal documents of the material that was used for installation, whether it is waterproofing membranes, etc. So all that evidence, we put it all together, and then we have to do a design report. A qualified person has to do a report that will accompany that application. But again, all these things are found in there's a council checklist of requirements that we need to satisfy, or you'll need to satisfy, in order to lodge this application for a C.O.A. And basically, it will be assessed on the against the building consent, and if council finds that it actually meets the building consent, then you will be able to be issued with that certificate of acceptance. So there you have it, guys. If you happen to have done any unconsented work, and you don't know what is required, and things happen in life, so you happen to do this unconsented work and things happen, and you realize that you need to either sell the property or move out or whatever, but somehow, somewhere, you need to show that this unconsented work was actually done as per the building code. You won't be able to get building consent for it, or a CCC issued for that particular work. A CCC is a certificate, a code of compliance certificate, but you will need to apply for and obtain a certificate of acceptance. Now, why do you need all these things? It's because without a CCC or something from council to show that your work complies with the building consent, it will be very hard to apply for insurance so that you can insure your property. It will be very hard, in fact, to get buyers. You will get buyers if you give it out for cheap, but it will be very hard to get the value for the real value, or the value that we expect to sell that property at. You won't be able to get that value that you're looking for. And of course, insurance comes into play. You cannot get insurance, and if you do, most likely your premiums are going to be very high. So it's very, very important that before you do any building work, determine and find out if it requires a consent or not, so that you don't get into, later on, after everything has been done, you don't get into a situation where you need now to apply for a certificate of acceptance. So if you're in New Zealand and you're a property owner and you find this information helpful, comment down below about what else you would like to know, and I will make basically a video about it. So I made this video on what a C.O.A. or a certificate of acceptance is because a friend of a friend requested me to do so and talk about it, and we are finding that a number of people are actually in this same situation where they're requiring their properties certified as some of the things that they've done, and it's not just bathrooms and kitchens. You can do a minor dwelling. You can convert an existing garage into a habitable dwelling and then assume that you don't need a building consent. That also happens mostly. And then later on you find that actually, because it's unconsented, you need some sort of assurance or limited assurance from council that it actually meets, you did it according to the building code. So if you're in New Zealand and this situation that I've described applies to you, comment down below. Let me know what your experience is and how you went about solving it. And if I've left out something, comment down below and let's have this discussion. I want to thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe and like and share as we continue to educate ourselves about the best practice in building and construction here in New Zealand and across the world. I'll see you in the next video.